Now, in the last video, we were going through the chain of narrators in Sahih al-Bukhari by generations and the average year of death for each generation, the number of narrators in each generation, and the famous narrators from each generation. In this slide, we have only two additional information, which is the 6 books or Kutub al-Sitta or the Sihah Sitta, and there are 962 Sahabas who narrated in the 6 books, and only 195 of them narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari. Whereas in Sahih Bukhari there are 1372 narrators from these 10 generations. In the 6th book, the total number of narrators is something around 45,463. Now, this also includes the chain of narrations from some of the books which were written later than Bukhari and Muslim. So, this 45,463 figure includes other later generations as well. Now, this slide is just a data sanity check for what I have calculated. So this is what I have calculated for each generation from the chain of narrations of Sahih al-Bukhari and their average year of death. And this is the classification of chain of narrators by Ibn Hajar Asqalani. And the way I have cross-verified the dates is that the average year of death for each generation in my list matches exactly with the corresponding list of Ibn Hajar Asqalani. So, for example, Imam Malik, his generation passed away by around 160, whereas Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who himself passed away around 241, but his generation passed away by 229, and Bukhari himself passed away around 256, but his generation passed away by 249. You can pause and read through this, but this is just the way I have cross-verified my calculation with Ibn Hajar Asqalani's definition of the generations for Hadith transmitters. Now, if you look at the number of narrators in Sahih al-Bukhari, here in this column, what I have done is I have plotted them in a graph, and the graph of the number of narrators in every generation for Sahih al-Bukhari comes something like this. The figures in the graph are exactly the same as the number of narrators in each generation, and the graph looks like this. Now, this is very interesting that it has a shape like this, where each subsequent generation have either higher or lesser number of narrators than the previous one, following a perfect trend, at least in the early generations. Remember, this is only for Bukhari. It would be interesting to see how these figures and graphs looks like in Sahih Muslim and also in the sixth book. So if we have the data from the sixth book including Muslim, then perhaps we can identify something more interesting from here. But for the time being, I will not try to interpret this figure because I don't have any other data point other than Bukhari. Now, these are the 6 books and Muwatta Imam Malik, and these are the number of hadith in each of these books. And for at least 3 of these, say Bukhari, Muslim and Abu Dawud, we have reports that how many hadith were scrutinized by the authors, and Bukhari scrutinized 600,000 hadiths and included only 7,563 of them, which is only 1.3% of the total hadith he scrutinized. Now this 7,500 figure includes repetition as well. Muslim scrutinized 300,000 hadiths, which is 2.5%. The 7,500 he included in his book is 2.5% of this 300,000. And Abu Dawud included 5,274 hadiths out of 500,000 hadiths, which is 1.1%. So at least in the most authentic 3 books, we have hadith that were accepted at a ratio or percentage point of 1.6%, meaning almost 98.5% of the hadith were actually not included after scrutinizing. This gives us confidence as well as is a testimony that there was a form of scrutinization built in within the system, and in this way the data within the hadith tradition were purified, sanitized and authenticated. Now these are the total number of hadith in the 6 books plus Muwatta, and these are the number of hadith without repetition. Now the bold in black figures are exact figures of hadith without repetition, whereas the red ones are approximate figures, and altogether there are 36,000 hadiths or about that figure in these books, and around 19,000 hadith without repetition. Now this 19,000 figure doesn't include the repetition between the books, so there can be a hadith that's present in Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud and Nasai, but these are calculated for different hadith in this 19,000 figure. So without repetition, the total number of hadith can be a little less than 19,000. Now the Sahabas or companions who have reported hadith. For example, Abu Huraira 5374, which is around 27% of all the hadith reported. Ibn Umar has reported 2600. Anas has reported 2200 or so. Aisha another 2200 or 11%. Ibn Abbas 1600 or 9%. Jabir 1500 or 8%. And Abu Sa'id Khudri 1100 or about 6%. And altogether this 16,800 hadith is about approximately 85% of the hadith in the sixth book. Now quickly, this is the lifespan of the Sahabas, the prominent 7 Sahabas we have discussed in the previous slide. We have either their death year or where available their birth year and the death year. You can pause and read through this. It's just for your reference. And the next slide is the top narrators of Sahih al-Bukhari and their generations, their lifespan, their exact year of death, and the average year of death for their generations. And these are the top 15 or so narrators in Sahih al-Bukhari. Urwa ibn Zubair from second generation, Nafi from second generation, al-Zuhri from third, Qatada from third, and so on. You can find Imam Malik, Shuba bin al-Hajjaj, Sufyan Thawri, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, and all the famous narrators from different generations. Now, this study was done on the basis of all the 1372 narrators of Bukhari. However, of course, the death or birth date for all of them was not available. It wasn't available for some of them. So, normal data sanitization practice were applied. However, on the basis of these 2 videos, I will next upload another video and link the video to this one in the description as well, where I will raise some more questions that have arisen from this study, and those questions might lead us to some interesting ways of understanding hadith and to think about hadith in the broader perspective. So please follow the next video, which will be the last, the part 3 of this 3-part series. Thank you.